Hello, everyone, and welcome to our continuing presentation of how to train like an athlete. My name is Melissa Whitmer. I'm the creator of the Ultimate Athlete Project. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come and join me here. So if you were in last week's webinar, we talked about kind of some overriding principles about the differences between training like an athlete versus training for general. And it's my belief that a lot of ultimate players accidentally get themselves stuck in programs that are more geared towards general fitness than for athletic performance. And while this is not terrible, and while athletes can have success on these programs, it's really not going to help the athlete to reach their full athletic potential. So today we're going to just do a quick review of some of the main concepts from last time, and then we're going to talk more in detail about the differences between, say, exercise versus training. And we're going to talk specifically about the metabolic pathways that are involved. Don't worry, it's not going to be super complex, but I think it's just going to give you a better understanding of what's going on with your own body so that you can better improve your own training programs or decide on the kind of training program that you want to use. So if you have any questions today, you can leave them in the chat box. I won't be able to answer them while I'm presenting, but I might be able to get to them at the end. Or if there's no questions, that's not a problem. You can always reach me at melissa@ultiresults.com. That's ULTY results.com. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to pull up some slides that will look familiar from last time if you saw it. If you didn't, you should have gotten an email that has a link to the previous webinar that we did. So again, the overriding theme here is how to train like an athlete. And today we're talking about training versus exercise, sort of part one. So last time we talked a little bit about how ultimate players currently get their training information and how they currently train. So some common things that I've heard in talking to athletes is, they just look up stuff on the internet, they read fitness blogs. Some people do plyo-only workouts. There are some popular ones online that players like to use because they like to improve their vertical, or just other mass-produced programs for the masses to help you get in shape. Or they use training routines that are passed down from other ultimate players. And we talked about some common results of those things. Oftentimes players either get burnout, they're doing too much volume. People that use plyo-only workouts are subject to an increased injury risk, things like that. So one of the main problems, as I mentioned last time, is that if you're getting programs from the internet or from fitness magazines, those are often geared towards the general populace. Okay, those programs, those workouts, those ideas are meant for the general populace, which has different goals and different challenges than athletes. So the emphasis for the general population is often on aesthetics, fat loss, body composition, and workouts. The emphasis is on the workout for exercise. For an athlete, however, the emphasis should be on performance. So not that we don't care about aesthetics, but we really want to perform. That's why we're doing our training sessions. And so we're training for results, not exercising for enjoyment or other goals. And if you're an athlete in a sport like ultimate, speed, power, and functional strength are kind of what you're after. So more specifically, what is the difference? So an athlete is the one who is training, a general pop person is the one who is doing exercise. So if you have a specific goal in mind, a specific result you want to see on the field, or basically your training, all your training is geared towards, in our case, ultimate frisbee. So we want to think about what is required to perform well on the field, and then we want to schedule our training around that concept. And oftentimes we have a time constraint as well. So when do we want to be performing and feeling our best? And how can we arrange our training so that we can perform the best when it matters most to us? In training, each session is going to be related in some way to the others. So you have a plan. You have to have a plan. If you don't have a plan, then you're not training, you're just exercising. And we evaluate the results of our training based on how well our training gives us the adaptation that we're looking for at that time. And so oftentimes in training, you won't really be able to evaluate it for several weeks. Or, you know, at the end of every season, you should actually evaluate your training too. What could you have done better? Were the results you got in the field what you expected based on the input that you put into training? Exercise is very different. So the reason that you do exercise often is to feel good, to be healthy. You know, there's other goals that we talked about, aesthetic and things like that. In an exercise session or a workout, people are often seeking to have a little bit of fun, because if you want to be healthy and feel good, it has to be somewhat enjoyable. Or maybe you want the workout to be challenging, you want to feel challenged, but it is really about how you're feeling, say, during that workout or after that workout. Maybe the workout is fun, you know, you're doing things like going roller skating, whatever, that's always fun, it's great exercise. Or maybe you don't care if the workout is fun, but you want to feel at the end of that workout that you have done something, you know, good. You've challenged yourself and you can feel good about that for the rest of the day. There is nothing wrong with exercise, of course, but it is different than training. So in exercise, if you're seeking fun, you need an element of randomness, variety to keep things interesting. Otherwise, you're not going to do it. And, you know, at some point, all of us are going to transition to doing exercise to feel healthy. And so those things are important. And you evaluate exercise maybe on your ability to continue to do those activities because you're trying to live an active lifestyle or whatever, or by how you feel during the workout. So that's different, again, than training. So I think it helps us to understand the differences between those two and why ultimate players get stuck doing exercise or programs for general fitness rather than doing programs that are designed for athletic performance. And I think if we kind of understand this in the context of the metabolic systems that are used, we can understand this a little bit better. So in general, there are 3 metabolic systems that your body uses to generate energy. You've got the cardiovascular system. When you're training that, you're doing things like long runs or long bike rides or whatever. It's all about you know, your heart and your lungs mostly. And there's also some adaptations in the muscles, creating more mitochondria, things like that. Don't worry about that. Don't want this to be too sciencey. But then you have the glycolysis system. This is what you're using for high intensity exercises that last like longer than 30 seconds and less than 2 minutes. So this is like if you're running a 400 or a 300 meter sprint or, you know, whatever. So we do use that system on the ultimate field if we have a long point. Last system is the phosphate system. This is the quickest energy system, and it's what we use when we are jumping as high as we can, maybe one time, or it's what we use when we're doing a short sprint, maybe a full field sprint, or, you know, when you're executing a cut, when you're getting a layout deep, you know, that's all high, that's like high power, short, very short time frame system. Okay, so when you're doing your training, you want to think about what systems are most important to you. Also, just a note, it's not like you can train exclusively one system at a time. All systems are in use all the time in varying proportions. But usually a type of training kind of targets one system more than the other based on the intensity and the length of time that you're doing whatever activity it is you're doing. Okay, now, how do you know when you're using these systems? Obviously, there's measurables, but I think when we are doing exercise, for example, often the emphasis is on how it makes us feel, and that's how a workout is evaluated. So if we're in the cardiovascular system, the way it makes us feel is pretty obvious. We have an increased heart rate, our breathing rate is increased, you're going to feel warmer, since you have an increased heart rate, your blood flow is increased. So those are all indicators that you are doing some cardiovascular activity, and you can feel that. Anaerobic glycolysis, that's the higher intensity between 30 seconds and 2 minutes sort of system. You can feel that as well. You're going to have some of the same indicators as cardiovascular emphasis, but you're also going to have, this is when you build up acid in the muscles. And so if you feel your muscles being sore during an activity, or if you're feeling the burn, for example, those are indicators that you're using anaerobic glycolysis because you're having some products in the muscles that give you that soreness feeling. Oh, and they also, the acidosis in the muscles inhibits muscle contraction. So this, for example, if you're doing some medium intensity resistance training and you just say you're doing reps of like 10 to 12 or higher than 12 or whatever, if you're feeling that soreness in your muscle, eventually you can't lift that thing anymore and you can feel the burn in your muscles. That's an example of sort of using anaerobic glycolysis. And in that 10 to 12 rep range is also, if you think about it, when you are doing work that's in that 30 seconds to 2 minutes thing as well. Or if you're sprinting a 400, oftentimes you can feel that your muscles stop to contract the way they were at the beginning of the 400 than they do at the end. So those are all indicators of anaerobic glycolysis. But again, you can feel what's happening. That's the main point here. Phosphagen system, that is the last one, and that is the one where you're producing lots of energy, but really only for a short period of time. So again, you're executing one vertical jump, or you are making a cut that lasts 10 seconds or whatever. How do we know if we're using this system? Well, this is the thing. Usually you can't really feel when you're using the phosphagen system. It doesn't have the same indicators as the other metabolic systems. So if you do a training session that emphasizes working in the phosphagen system, you might not feel, it might not feel like a workout. You might not feel it until later, and it might appear as like sort of just general fatigue, like I want to go to sleep, but you're not going to feel any of the things in the above two systems. So, and you might not feel anything at all. So what I'm talking about here is if you go out and you want to train your max vertical, when you do that training session, you're going to be working at maximum intensity. You're going to have lots of rest between reps, and it won't feel like a workout in, say, the way that people often think of workouts feeling. You're not going to feel an increased heart rate. It's not going to feel difficult. You're not going to feel any muscle soreness during or after the workout. And so for some, that just doesn't feel as satisfying. There's no immediate feedback. There's nothing immediately to tell us that we are doing something or that we're doing a good job. And we like to know that we're doing a good job, but there's no way to evaluate it in the moment. And I think this is why a lot of people get stuck in general fitness programs, because, I mean, everyone wants to feel and know that they're doing a good job. Okay, so again, the main points. Here I say the nervous system and the glycolytic system are kind of like go together. So the difference between those systems and say the cardiovascular system or, nervous system, you can sort of substitute this for the phosphagen system. The difference between that and say the glycolytic and cardiovascular system is that you can't really feel what's going on when you're using the nervous system or the phosphagen system, but you can feel it when you're doing glycolytic or cardiovascular system. And so training for athletic qualities like agility, max vertical, and speed often don't feel difficult. You can't feel right away that you're doing something. So again, the nervous system or the phosphagen system, what's happening is that you're trying to work on rapid coordination of using most muscle fibers as possible, right? That's how you get a max vertical. You're using the glycolytic, you're using the phosphagen system. Whoops, I want to go backwards. Sorry, using the phosphagen system, not the glycolytic metabolic pathway, sorry. Your adaptations in agility, power production, and vertical jumping are what you're after. And often the type of training that athletes need most, this type for the nervous system, is that which you can feel the least, and so then you're the least likely to do it properly. So I'm not saying that athletes never do it, but common mistakes would be things like not having enough rest between reps, or running through things too quickly. When you're training the nervous system, you really need a lot of focus on what you're doing because you're trying to get a max effort out of every repetition. And if you don't do that, then you're just not going to see the adaptation that you want. So common example I use is like you want to be performing within 90% of your max ability in order to get adaptation. So for example, if your vertical jump is only 10 inches, anytime that you execute a jump that's 9 inches or more, then you are training in a way that's going to lead to adaptation in your vertical jump. But anytime that you execute a jump that's 9 inches or less, you're not going to be doing something that leads to adaptation. You're just doing, other work or exercise. So it's important that you have enough rest between reps. It's important that you schedule this type of training when you're not fatigued. It's important that if you do this within a training session that also involves some other stuff like conditioning or whatever, it's important that you do this at the beginning of the session. So doing agility drills, for example, at the end of practice does not do you any good as far as increasing your agility. Okay, so, the devil is in the details. Like I said, a lot of people do plyometric programs, or they try to increase their vertical or agility, but if they're doing too much volume of it, again, you're not going to see the adaptations that you want. Or if your scheduling is not very good, then you're not going to see the adaptations that you want. And so this is kind of a long quote, but just kind of shows, I think, shows an example of this point. So this is a player from Prairie Fire, and so he used the Ultimate Athlete Project. The whole team kind of used many of the Ultimate Athlete Project workouts in gearing up for their season this year. And so so this player was injured, and so he wasn't actually doing a lot in the off season per se, but what he says and what he noticed about the programming is that the tapering workouts before big tournaments and priming the central nervous system on the off days through brief explosive workouts was an effective adjustment to my workout regimen. And so he came into every weekend practice and tournament feeling more explosive and lighter on the feet compared to past seasons. So again, it's this kind of lower volume, high intensity approach. And then, once he finally began being able to train, he did realize gains in strength, but my legs rarely ever felt burnt out. Okay, and so that again is a big difference between what we use in the Ultimate Athlete Project versus what a lot of players do. Appropriate volume is really important to maintaining that sort of light feeling on your feet, so that your legs are not overly tired all the time. So anyway, this not only helped me to continue workout and condition at a high level of intensity, but because I didn't feel overworked, I was able to stay focused and motivated all the way through regionals. In past seasons, where I focused primarily on plyometrics and track workouts, my body would wear down by late September and leave me mentally drained and ready for the off season. So again, the volume here I think is super important. So it's not as if this player had not used plyometrics and had not tried to train the central nervous system, but it's just how you sort of schedule things together that really matters. And so scheduling is something that we're going to talk about in the next time that we meet, which is either going to be tomorrow or Wednesday. So again, the main points from today I want to get through are that if you are doing the type of training that is leading to increases in vertical jumping, agility, acceleration, those things that are most important to on-field performance, you're going to have a different mentality about your training. And you're going to have to realize that those types of training might not always feel like exercise in the way that you want it to or the way that you're used to. But if you do it properly, it does have large benefits that you'll feel later down the line. And so again, we're thinking long term here. So what we do in May and April and the volume we have there might change or affect how we feel both physically and mentally in September. So I hope that today's session has helped you think a little bit about your training philosophy and given you some sort of insight into, again, what the difference is between really training like an athlete would focus versus just performing exercise and hoping things turn out all right. So next time we're going to talk a little bit about the second part of the difference between exercise versus training, and that's going to be about your scheduling and planning. So I hope that you will join me then, and I will look forward to seeing you there.